It's no secret that Gamefreak has deadlines to meet. I don't know the ins and outs of their work environment, so I won't pretend like I do, but one thing that's been clear the last several years is that they need more time to make games. In the past year, Pokemon have released 3 main series games. On November 19th, 2021, they released Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. These were developed by another company, but I imagine Gamefreak had some sort of involvement in development, even if it was minor. And we know, at the very least, Junichi Masuda co-directed these games. As much fun as I had with them at the time, it was only because they're Pokemon games. In my opinion, BDSP was unnecessary. It feels like they were made just to shut up fans that were asking for a Sinnoh remake. Not to mention, they weren't even fully finished on release. The Wonder Trade feature wasn't enabled until March 16th, 2022, at which point most people had already moved on from those games. Oh yeah, and there was a lot of glitches and exploits.
And then it's very important that you check the summary of the Jirachi. You check the summary, you go back to the previous screen, and now I have 2 Jirachis.
Just a couple months after BDSP, January 28th, 2022, Pokemon Legends Arceus was released. A game which strayed away from the traditional Pokemon formula. It was a more open world experience, set a couple hundred years in the past. Your job was to make the very first Pokedex, and it was fun. The response to this game was overwhelmingly positive. I love this game, but my biggest gripe is that it's strictly a single player experience besides trading. So when I heard Pokemon Scarlet and Violet would combine features from traditional main series Pokemon games and Pokemon Legends Arceus, I was hyped. However, having played these games for over 150 hours, I have some opinions. While playing through Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I had this empty feeling. Despite how much fun I was having, gnawing away at the back of my mind, I felt sad knowing this was the finished game. Truth be told, it felt like I was playing a pre-release. Listen, I understand deadlines have to be met. Very few video games could ever be considered perfect. There's always something someone would prefer they did differently. But there's no denying Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are not in a finished state. Between poor graphics, an infinite amount of glitches, and performance issues, there's a lot to talk about. Let's start with everyone's favorite topic, graphics. A video game doesn't need insane, high-definition, 4K resolution, realistic graphics to be a good game. Pokemon have always been behind in the graphical department. It wasn't until Sword and Shield when graphics started to become a complaint from fans. This was because they used improving animations as their reason for cutting half of the Pokemon out of these games. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the Pokemon and trainer models look amazing. The best Pokemon has ever looked in my opinion. The textures really bring them to life. Not only that, they improved a lot of the animations, so Pokemon look a lot less static in battle. If my Pokemon is bigger than the opposing one, they look upwards at me. Abomasnow looks like it's ready to fight, and perhaps one of my favorite things is that more than just water types or flying types can be used in the water. Jolteon does this little doggy paddle, it's so cute. One gripe about the Pokemon models though is they no longer close their eyes when sleeping in battle. This is weird because they have sleeping animations in the overworld. Anyways, as nice as the Pokemon models are, the overworld looks like something straight out of a PS2 Spyro the Dragon game. I think this could be forgiven if the game actually ran well, but it doesn't. If you didn't know, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet playtime is calculated by frames, not actual playtime. So my in-game time is just over 150 hours, whereas the Nintendo Switch claims I've played this game for 155 plus hours. That means I lost around 5 hours due to lag. The game in normal circumstances is generally okay, but it starts to lag a lot when there's weather effects on screen or when you're swimming in water. The camera in this game is awful at times. It's possible to run long enough on Koraidon that it can no longer be visible on screen. And if I run through some of the tunnels, the camera clips outside. Navigating the menus suck, they're unbearably slow. I hope this is one of the first things they fix. I've also experienced crashes a handful of times, so I'd recommend playing with autosaves on. It's fair to say these games were poorly optimized. You could argue the Switch being a weak console doesn't help, but Gamefreak knows the console they're developing for, and they've done a fine job with all their previously released games. There's hope that a lot of these optimization issues will be patched out, especially because there's clearly DLC planned for the game. The top right of the map hints towards it, and there's 2 unseen Pokemon in the game's files. I'm hopeful that it's fixable because if not, it does not bode well for the future of Pokemon games on the Switch. Now, video games are bound to have glitches. There's only so much developers can test before the release of a game. If you've been on social media at all, I'm sure you've seen some of the hilarious glitches in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. From falling out of bounds, to trainers having broken body parts, to Elite Four music being glitched, to Pokemon trainers becoming Titans, to becoming the Crazy Frog, to random Pokemon appearing in the middle of important cutscenes. This game has a lot of issues. A racing glitch was discovered within Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's Battle Stadium. Currently, the Battle Stadium is using the same RNG seed for every battle. The RNG seed guarantees that moves with under 91% accuracy miss on the first turn. This absolutely has to be fixed before the start of any VGC season, otherwise it will be abused. Thankfully, at least from what I've seen, besides the RNG seed issue, none of these glitches have been game breaking. That doesn't mean they don't exist though, and they aren't a good look for Gamefreak. So now that we've established more time is needed for Gamefreak to be able to provide the bare minimum, let's do some wishful thinking. In a perfect world, if all of these issues were addressed, what could we add to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet to truly make them the peak Pokemon experience? Because I truly believe this game had potential, and it was squandered by deadlines. The most important feature I, among many others, wished for was level scaling. It doesn't have to be one-to-one level scaling, just a level floor depending on how many badges I have. Wild Pokemon and trainers can remain the same levels, that's not a problem. The issue is the bosses of the game don't scale. I didn't really get to explore the game in a custom order like they advertised because feeling over-leveled is not a feeling I enjoy. Something I recently started advocating for was voice acting. I played Fire Emblem Three Houses and the huge chunks of dialogue I had to read were much more enjoyable with voice acting.
They have my trust. Let that be enough for you as well.
This is more of a subjective wish. I've heard arguments from people against adding voice acting to Pokemon, and I understand where they come from. At the very least, I think it would be nice to have voice acting in important cutscenes, and the rest of the game can be filled with grunts and noises.
Are you these three's trainer?
Customizing your character in Scarlet and Violet was quite controversial. The additions to the face and hair were very welcome, but besides that, there wasn't much you could change. You get 4 school outfits at the start of the game, 1 for each season, and that's it. All you can change beyond that is gloves, backpack, hat, glasses, socks, and shoes. I understand we're supposed to follow a strict school dress code, but they should have just forced changed your character into their school uniform during school events. Once I'm outside on my treasure hunt, I'd rather wear something more comfortable for travel. Map navigation in this game can be unbearable unless you press down on the right joystick to lock it. Another thing that makes it unbearable is the lack of map markers. You get 1 destination marker and that's it. Pokemon Legends Arceus had proper markers and they were useful to remind yourself of knowable locations. To be fair, the Scarlet and Violet map is cluttered with icons, so we need the ability to turn off specific icons temporarily so we can use the markers more clearly. While I do believe Scarlet and Violet were jam-packed with content, a feature from Legends Arceus I missed was side quests. In Scarlet and Violet, you sort of have a side quest at each Pokemon Center. If you battle all the trainers on a previous route, you'll get a reward. Most of the rewards are battle items you can buy anyway, but sometimes you can get a rare TM. I think the inclusion of these are fine, but they are repetitive, and I wish there were other side quests from NPCs throughout the region. There's a lot of quality of life in these games that I honestly can't live without, but they did remove 3 huge things a lot of fans enjoyed. Firstly, they removed set mode. Set mode was primarily used by Nuzlockers, but I found myself using it in standard playthroughs as I got older because it just makes more sense. Why should I be warned about which Pokemon is coming out next in a trainer battle? Imagine if that happened in online battles. Secondly, they removed the shiny sparkle effect and noise from the overworld. Now, I personally prefer this because I do love the surprise of randomly seeing a different colored Pokemon in the overworld, but removing any indication is a huge middle finger to colorblind fans. My initial theory was that they removed it to arbitrarily make the shiny Pokemon harder to come by, but if they wanted to do this, they could have just increased the odds. Third, a feature introduced in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee was mass release. The feature was then removed in Sword and Shield and BDSP, but brought back again for Legends Arceus. I know why this is. Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee and Legends Arceus were games where the focus was catching multiple of the same species of Pokemon. It would be hell to make space in your boxes without the option to mass release. But the main series games also encourage multiple species of the same Pokemon by breeding for perfect stats. Even if they made mass release only obtainable in the post game, just like the IV checker, a lot of fans would appreciate it, and I just think it's silly that it's being excluded. And lastly, I didn't know where else to put this, but this game has very few indoor buildings. It's not really a huge deal, but I do think there needed to be a little bit more. Despite all the bad things I've had to say, this was still the most fun I've ever had playing a Pokemon game. If you want to hear what I enjoyed about these games, subscribe and stay tuned to my channel. I'll be posting a video about that soon. These games deserve better than to be rushed out, and I really hope in the future we see a change with the Pokemon game release cycles. Thanks for watching.